Police officers or investigators, what are your "holy crap, this criminal is smart" moments? A guy found out that when a gas station lost its satellite connection, it automatically accepted all credit cards, and would presumably process them later. So he climbed on the roof and covered the dish with foil to force it to lose connection, then made charges on a card that was cancelled. I always thought that credit card technology was so weird, because it's like your card itself isn't connected to the internet, yet when you put it into something, it's all connected to the internet somehow and tells you what the balance is and all that. I don't know, I haven't really looked into it if you can't tell. Not a cop, but I like this old story about an armored truck robber who covered his tracks by first placing a Craigslist ad to get a bunch of suspects to show up to an imaginary construction job near the scene of the crime, dressed like him, with yellow vests, safety goggles, blue shirt, respirator masks, and work boots. Yeah, that would kind of suck if you entered an ad to go work construction, and you just had to stand around for an hour, and then you get arrested for being an accomplice in a crime. You're like, what did I do? I was an assistant manager at a little deli/corner store for a few years, and one of the employees bragged that he was getting a bag of weed a week from the store for free. Not to me, but to other employees. I couldn't figure out how. The numbers always matched up. He was also really successful with one of our couponing programs. It took me a while to figure out that our POS system would take the coupon without the UPC being scanned. In other words, the coupons were essentially cash. He was cashing out $80 a week in coupons. The kid was pretty smart. I only found out when I was doing the inventory and the books the same week. I saw that we sold a ton of ice cream, and thought, geez, I'm gonna have to restock the crap out of that. Then realized that it was fully stocked, and put two and two together. See, I know that there's a job out there that's like being a white hat hacker, which is where you basically try to hack your own system to try and find the cracks in it so that you can patch those up. But I guess you kind of need stuff like that for all kinds of jobs that don't even have anything to do with hacking. In the 2000s, you could order a new credit card, not activate it, and then when you were on a long-haul flight, you could upgrade via the card machine to first class once on board, and then pay for the premium service. And when the flight landed and got internet connection, none of the purchases would be successful, and you would already be out of the airport. I never understood how they couldn't find you afterwards with your passport and credit card details, but it was a big fraudulent scam that hit the newspapers multiple times. Maybe because, apart from witness testimonies, there wasn't a sufficient paper trail to say that you were upgraded or had any of the expensive champagne or duty-free. Man, another one of these kind of makes you want to just go find some random expired credit card to try it out on some places. Old, long time ago, a friend of mine used to be in a professional car thief group. They would steal 70s and 80s model cars and trucks, strip them down, repaint and decorate, then sell them. The state next to theirs had this weird thing where if a car was wrecked, it went to the junkyard, but the title was never marked as totaled or destroyed. It's been changed. So they would go buy these reeks for next to nothing, get a clean title, swap the VIN, scrap the reek at a metal yard, sell the newly VIN'd car at a normal price to regular people. When I asked what made him quit, he laughed and said, "The local district attorney." Turns out the DA was looking for a Camaro for his wife, and said buddy had a newly, minty fresh one with low miles for sale. The DA, along with his sheriff buddy, knocked on a friend's door to take it for a test ride, at which point he said the friend crapped his pants. Not only was that Camaro hot, the other car in his garage, 3 feet away, was in the middle of a rebuild, and the truck out front had just been picked up. He was 100% convinced he was screwed beyond belief, but they took the car for a spin, loved it, and paid cash for the Camaro. My friend had come to a Jesus moment, saw the error of his thieving ways, took everything automotive at his house to the scrapyard, and then went and bought a legit car. All that very day. I mean, with all of the work they're going through to rebuild these cars, they might as well just start a handmade car manufacturing business. I mean, sure, doing it the honest way is probably going to have a lot more challenges and you're not going to be making nearly as much. But it's kind of funny when you hear about these crime rings where they are putting so much work and effort into something that they could just be putting that same effort into legally and doing just as well. A dude hit 10 banks and many other stores, just wearing his pandemic mask and a hood, always on a very rainy and stormy day. Walked in each place and handed them a note that said he would shoot and be certain to kill them if they didn't give him all the cash they had. Ballsy, but I mean, they still haven't caught him. So, I mean, pretty smart way to do it, I guess. Probably didn't even have a gun. What's funny is none of the banks ever triggered the silent alarm, and most of the stores called like 5 minutes after he left. Must have been pretty intimidating. Not sure exactly what the note said. Yeah, it is kind of ironic that the whole world tells every person to cover up their identity, and then is shocked when criminals can blend into the crowd a lot easier. I'm not a police officer, but knew a doctor who was kind of a scam artist. It was a bit odd because he was a brilliant doctor and made so many people's lives better, that people were so grateful they were always throwing money at him. Anyway, he ran a motor vehicle accident rehabilitation clinic. and he paid police officers a referral fee for any accident victims that they sent his way. It was something like 500 Canadian dollars, which sounds like a lot, but each client was worth tens of thousands of dollars to the clinic. He also literally hired one of the guys who wrote the actual tax code for an accountant/lawyer, so he would get away with so much slimy stuff. But I'm sure the revenue agency knew who he hired, so they were like, yeah, that guy is untouchable, don't waste your time. Yeah, well, when you're part of the establishment elite, who's gonna come for you? So I worked in a corporate hair salon. We had a class on loss prevention at one time, and the lady that came to talk about what constitutes as theft with employees. One story she told us was about another salon, located somewhere else, where the stylists themselves were stealing money right from the company. Out of 5 stylists, 4 of them were scamming the company. Instead of running credit card payments through the corporate credit card system on the POS, they would tell the clients the CC system was down, and they would have to run the cards through another CC system. Each of the 4 stylists had Square devices that they would set up like their own business, so the charge went straight through to their own bank accounts. And then the service would either be cancelled or show up as a no-show. They finally got caught when a customer called corporate to complain about her service and was wanting a refund. The transaction was nowhere to be found. The sad thing was that one of the stylists was a salon manager, who ended up going to prison for 3 years, plus having to pay restitution. I'm not sure what the other 3 got, but I'm sure they all lost their jobs. Just blows the mind the things people will come up with. Yeah, well, I suppose when it's a business that runs off of services rather than actually selling things that you have inventory of, it's a lot easier to sweep that under the rug. I'm not a cop, but my friend who worked at Best Buy used to do a pretty clever scheme. It's kinda messed up, but we were in college and our moral code wasn't exactly honorable at the time. Usually during the holidays, there's a deal where if you buy a certain TV, you get a gift card. Something like $10 to $20. That wasn't really heavily advertised, but a salesman would likely tell this to a customer to get you to buy a TV. Well, this my friend wouldn't tell the customer. He would just sell the TV and pocket the gift card. However, he knew that each gift card was scanned and tied to that customer's transaction. And him, since he sold the TV. So what he would do is wait until he had a few cards, and then get into a coworker's computer session, and buy one large gift card using the smaller gift cards. Now he could use the larger gift card for whatever purchase he wants without it really being tracked back to him. Never got caught, and I was always impressed he could pull this off. Yeah, gift cards are kind of funny things. There's a reason that so many, scammers that are trying to take money from you are always like, just send me an iTunes gift card or an Amazon gift card or something like that. So my dad used to race cars in the 80s, and he got caught by a police car. They turned on their lights and chased him. My dad was using NOS before that was super common, and he flipped that on and took off, and then skidded into a random parking lot, crawled through the bushes and got home. Then immediately called the police and filed that his car was stolen. They already knew my dad, but were like, "Ah, man, we'll keep an eye out for it. Oh, looks like there it is. Oh, thank you found it." And he walked over and picked it up and drove home with it. They knew he was lying, but couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, I think that kind of thing crosses a lot of people's minds anytime they're doing something really illegal, and they're like, it wasn't me, it was stolen. A few years back, my elderly neighbor's home was robbed. Her husband had just passed away, and the obituary was in the paper with showing times and the time burial ceremony was going to start. These lowlifes looked up her husband's address in the phone book and knew exactly what time their house would be unoccupied. They took absolutely everything of value from this lady on the day she was putting her husband in the ground, and they never caught them. Yeah, some people out there are just pretty messed up. You can't always count on the general public as just being trustworthy. I worked with this one guy who had a lengthy record. He had a system for getting released if he got caught. After committing a crime, if the police were in pursuit and he knew he was about to be cornered, he would act insane. His girl would play along with it, telling the police that he was off his medication. The police would arrest him, but then send him to a mental ward with papers, instructing the ward to release to police once he was cleared. Once he was in the mental ward, he would cause a distraction that would make the person attending the desk with the file cabinet to leave said cabinet. He would then crawl to the file cabinet, look for his release to police papers, and then would literally eat the papers. When the psych ward evaluators decided that he was stable enough to be released, there would be no instructions to send him to police, and he would be released to the general public. He did this about 10 times until police officers noticed him back on the streets. This stunt forced the state to change their procedure for detaining mentally unstable suspects. Yeah, and this is why when so many people try to claim insanity when they get arrested, the police are like, yeah, we're not falling for that. We don't really care if you are or not. My dad is an attorney who had 2 clients. One who had an old huge Chevy Nova with a very well hidden switch under the dash. He would flip the switch and the brake lights off, then go in front of someone and hit the brakes. He won several claims from insurance companies. Yeah, when it comes to the laws of accidents, it is kind of stupid that the person in the back of the accident is always at fault no matter what, because that's the kind of rule a lot of people are going to try and take advantage of. So this happened maybe 3 decades ago. My dad worked bank robberies and other financial fraud cases. Most criminals he caught were not very smart at all, the way he tells it, but there was a group of guys who got involved in some kind of payroll scheme that managed to successfully and anonymously embezzle a lot of cash. Like I said, I don't remember all the details, but it involved skimming a few cents off each paycheck from tens of thousands of checks at a time on each payday for some big company. This was only possible because it was before the age when everything was digital as a given, and they got access to the physical payrolls, modified them, and then paid themselves out the difference somehow so that everything still added up on the books, and nobody was likely to notice the 1 or 2 cents missing from their own check. These guys had code names inspired by their D&D group, like Wizard or Troll. Well, some years later, after my dad catches these guys, he is called for an interview for another embezzlement case of some kind. They're doing the good cop, bad cop routine, and my dad was supposed to play the bad cop. But the guy looked familiar, and kept glancing at my dad nervously, like he thought he was familiar too. So he just stayed quiet until a few minutes later it clicked, and he says, "Hey, wait a minute, I know you. You're the troll." The other agent in the room at that point just sat back while my dad, who was supposed to be the bad cop, just starts chatting with the guy, buttering him up, reminiscing about what a good case that was and how a good job this guy and his friends did before they were caught. Got the information they needed and closed another case. Isn't that whole scheme basically a copy of Office Space? Except in the movie they completely screwed it up and stole way too much money. A bank in my hometown was robbed by a group of individuals during a historic snowstorm. We got 12 feet in 2 days, and early in the snowstorm the bank was still open. A couple of people just walked in with masks and guns, robbed the place and escaped on foot. Police response time was about 45 minutes at best, and by the time they arrived on scene the tracks were gone. Long shot, but pure genius. See, with all of these crazy strategies people come up with, it almost makes me wish that I could just, attempt committing crimes. Not that I want to be a criminal, or it's not that I'm wanting to try and steal tons of money, but I just would like to see if I could get away with it, you know? My license plates were swapped with a car of the same make and model that was stolen. They then used their stolen car with my plates on them in a police chase. Nearly got my husband arrested until I showed them my car at the train station with the stolen car's plates on them. The cops were surprised they were that clever. Still got caught in the end, though. Yeah, what's kind of funny about license plates is that we always rely on them to, identify cars, but it's so easy for somebody to just cover up their license plate or just take it off or swap it with another car. So it doesn't seem like the most reliable way of catching people. So a guy bought a truck and needed plates, but was on the run and couldn't get things legally. So he drove around until he saw a truck like his and wrote down the plate. Stole multiple plates with similar numbers and letters, combined them into one plate using tin snips, Gorilla Glue, and patience. Drove around with clean plates for months before anyone noticed. Couldn't even tell what he did unless you were inches away from it. Well, that was a very interestingly unplanned set of stories right next to each other, right after I just said the thing about the license plates. Dude robbed millions of people and covers it up by getting elected. Yeah, I think we need to do something about our politicians. My company does orders over the phone and offers refunds to customers who aren't happy with the service. Order-taking employees would take an order, process the customer card, and then at the end of their shift, refund that customer, but put the refund on a debit card of theirs. The money would show up in their account immediately, and our end-of-night books would balance, so it took us a while to catch this. We did catch it because we track refunds as a measure of customer satisfaction, and refunds were up that quarter, so we started looking for the reasons by calling customers and asking about it. They said, "What refund? I didn't get a refund." We fired him, pressed charges, he pled guilty to theft and did 20 days in the county jail. Fast forward 2 years, I'm training a new manager. "Heather, here's how this works. You gotta watch out for this." She got it. A few weeks later, I got a call from our card processor. "Hey, we're seeing refunds to cards that haven't done business with you, and it's against our terms of service." I get the times and dates of the transactions, grab Heather, and say, "Hey, we got a problem. Can you see who was on shift at 3:30 Wednesday?" "Sure, I'll get back to you tomorrow." So I'm on my way home and I get a second call from our processor saying, "We've got the name on the account that is receiving the funds. Do you know Heather?" So I walked into her office the next day and closed the door and said, "Heather, you got anything you want to tell me?" She confessed, said that she did it once to see if it worked, and then kept doing it because it was easy. She'd stolen about $6,000 before we caught on, which made it a felony. This was a woman who I was paying $80K a year in the mid-90s. Single mom, smart. I figured it was drugs. I told her to take the rest of the day off, and we'd talk about it in the morning. I called the police, had them arrive a half hour before she got there. The officers were in the conference room when I escorted Heather in. She confessed to them, ended up pleading guilty to felony theft. I don't think I have to mention that I fired her that day. I did ask her why, and she really didn't have a good answer. I still don't know to this day. It's kind of funny that they basically tell her, okay, here's a bad thing, don't do this thing. And then she's like, huh, I guess I will try it. So I worked in a cage at a casino where all the money is. One girl, pretty new, kept having variances. Her drawer would be off $1,000 to $2,000 fairly often, so they started watching her more closely. We weren't supposed to help friends or family, but she would, and we were supposed to count out by hand the bills. Well, she ran the bills through the jet scan and handed the stack to her sister. Well, her drawer was $10K off. Turns out that she put a $1 bill on top of the strap of hundreds and slid it to her sister. Needless to say, she was caught. She was also stupid enough to brag to other coworkers about how she'd soon have enough money to travel and start a business, when the day before she's complaining about being a poor single mom. How obvious could she be? Well, I thought this thread was for smart criminals. Well, hope you enjoyed. I'm definitely not gonna say you should go out and try these things, but if you do, don't pin them on me. At least try to be original. But anyways, I'll see you next time.